Hi everyone, Grace here. Today I have a special guest and I've known her for many years and I'm so glad she's here today. I'm going to let her introduce herself. We'll go from there. Thank you for being here.
Thank you, Grace. And hello, my new friend. My name is Elysia Skye. I am a life purpose and mindfulness coach. I work remotely with lots of people all around the world, and it is a pleasure to do what I do and to be here talking to Grace, who is helping me make my dog less of a jerk.
Yeah, I still remember I told you your dog is the mirror of you.
I will say, okay, so Grace and I were at an event and I said, Grace, she told me, more about what she was doing. And I was like, Grace, you have to help me. My dog is such an asshole. And she goes, well, the dog is always a reflection of their owner. I was just like, I love you.
Tell me a little bit, like when you say like life purpose or mindset coach, what that mean?
Well, it really comes down to clarity. When I usually start working with someone, they are at a job that they don't like and they feel unfulfilled. Or maybe they've started a new business, but they feel stuck. So, in that case, we really get clear on what their purpose is, what feels so meaningful to them. Where are they a genius, a rock star, like you are with dogs? And from there, we erase the blocks and the fears that are holding them back. And the best way to do this is through an approach of mindfulness, of being present, because when we are present, then we have reduced in that moment anxiety and depression. Anxiety is worrying about the future or comparing the past. So that's the future and the past. But right here in this moment, we are safe and we could feel safe when we tune into it. And there's different tools and techniques that we use to do that. And that's a great jumping off point to create your life.
Wow, I feel that's you just very short time, but you already like explain like a huge topic. I heard a lot of people say, "Oh, you're being mindful, right? You're being like, oh, you need to find your life purpose, right?" It's like for me, it's like okay, right? So this is the first time I actually hear somebody actually explain, okay, the clarity, what's that clarity we're looking at, and being mindful. You said it's means being present, and
Yes.
then tell me more about this anxiety. You said anxiety about the past and the future. Give me a little bit more context on that when you how people process that when they talk about being anxious.
Yeah. Well, anxiety has really become an epidemic, and more people are feeling anxious and almost referring to anxiety as a normal thing that, maybe when we were growing up, we would refer to, oh, I'm in a bad mood or, this and that. And now it's just become this identified thing because it is a real thing. And when we are anxious in the moment, that means there is fear there. We are feeling like we are out of control or we cannot control something and we're unhappy about it. And the only reason we feel like we have to control something is because we're worried about something that doesn't exist. It hasn't happened yet. Doesn't mean it's not going to happen, but it hasn't actually happened yet. So we shouldn't respond from that place. Or we're thinking about something that, oh, last time I was in this situation, this terrible thing happened. So now I'm feeling how I felt then, and I can't get clear to make a good decision to move forward, right? So they're either looking ahead or they're looking back, and that's when you crash because you're not looking right here.
Well, I love this because it's related to dog training. I obviously in my podcast I always talk about dog training. That's why I love interviewing guests like you, right? Talk about human beings, emotions, and anxiety is such a big word nowadays, popular word. Everybody's anxious, right? We're recording it during pandemic, like everybody's anxious.
Everybody.
And then I have a lot of clients have shared with me their dogs getting worse in the past year because all the changes and stuff. Because I said the whole house, the stress level is up to the roof, and then your dog is kind of seeing that energies as well. And I already work a lot of very fearful dog. They're anxious, just like you said with human. They are anxious something gonna happen, like gonna somehow they feel something gonna harm them, so they're freaking out. And or like also like you said, some dog may do have bad experience before. So then they're reacting at something that happened in the past. They're like, oh my God, this is gonna be bad this time. How would you help those people if they're just almost like stuck there? They don't know what to do.
Well, there's a process. And that's what I do in my coaching program. But we begin with learning to really hear and trust your own intuition, your own internal guidance system, because we have that gut feeling. We know, just like an animal, just like a dog, it's a little different than instinct. It's actually intuition. And with intuition, if we are present enough and calm enough to hear it, we know, is this safe? Is this the right move? Is this the right person? Is this the right choice? I mean, gosh, Grace, if everybody was clear enough to make all those choices, we would be out of business. Right. And I hope that one day that happens, because wow, that would be like a utopian society. But for now, we're here to help and to do that work. So the first step is really getting able to hear yourself, really getting clear, being able to be present. And to break that down even more, I usually have them start with their own body. So right now, as you're watching this, maybe you're watching it on a computer, or you're watching it on your phone. If you're watching it on your phone, I want you to notice the weight of the phone in your hand. And if you have to close your eyes to do that, go ahead. This is something we take for granted all the time. We hold our phone 1,000 times a day and we don't notice, yeah, it has some weight. When you first bought it, you might have thought, oh, this is a heavier phone than normal, or this is a lighter phone than normal. We get used to it. So what if we just breathe and notice? And now if you're on a computer, just notice how you're sitting. Has your body tightened up? Where are you tight? Where are you loose? And then lean more into that. Take some breaths. If you've noticed that you've been sitting for a while and you're kind of leaning forward and you're into it, okay, breathe, stretch it back. I like to say, just breathe into that part of your body. You take a deep breath and almost feeling like my shoulders, right? Like feel my shoulders breathe. So wherever it is for you that can help you drop more into the present moment through your body, the simplest way to do it is through your breath. If your mouth is closed and you're breathing through your nose, notice the coolness or the warmth of the air as it comes through your nose. That's something we do 1,000 times a day that we don't notice. But just in this last minute, do you notice how time slowed down a little bit? Because you were focused on yourself. Not in a selfish way, but in a mindful way. And when we choose to focus on a very specific thing, specifically even our body, we slow down time. When people say life goes by so fast, gosh, I've already had my dog for 7 years. I remember when she was a puppy. It's like, because there's so many things happening all the time and we can't multitask. We just can't focus on more than one thing. So the moments that stand out in our mind where life, yeah, you're nodding, right? Like life feels like it slowed down and we were able to take these mental pictures and videos in our mind, is because we were actually present for them.
I love what you just did. And I wrote down a lot of notes here, and you said trust your own intuition. And then you said you have to be calm enough so you can hear your own intuition. You can actually hear it. And this back to dogs. I always tell my clients, right? Dogs' behavior reflection of their mind. So we teach dogs to relax and calm their own minds so that they can make better decisions when they're calmer and stop being reactive. So when we term in human, like when you work with clients that what's the most important part in your opinion or from your professional standpoint, like why people needs to be mindful, like what good it does?
If really the meaning of life is to be peaceful and loving and forgiving, the opposite of that experience is living in fear. And that is not the truth of who we are or why we are here. The truth of who we are is we are love, just like a dog. They are perfect examples of unconditional love manifested into form. And wouldn't it be wonderful if we were just like them?
No, I wouldn't go there.
As far as the loyalty and the unconditional love, okay? That's what I meant. But when we are living from a place of fear, right, that anxious place, that thinking about things that don't happen, think of the acronyms for fear: false events appearing real, fuck everything and run. That is not the place we want to live.
Wow. So I love this part. If you don't mind, I go a little down in this rabbit hole here.
Let's do it.
So if you are living in fear, then you basically will lose the ability of being loving and being forgiving.
It makes it harder.
Make it harder.
It makes it harder. Now, someone who is very generous and very giving and very loving may disagree. They may say, no, I'm afraid of everything and I'm very anxious, but I have a big heart and I'll always put everybody first. And I'm going to love until I can't breathe anymore. Right. So that's one way to be, but I don't think that's a very good way to be, because then you run out of batteries and you get sick. So really, if we can take care of ourselves and practice self-care, and self-care is not selfish. Okay, when we started this conversation today, I said, oh, Grace, I need to go get a bottle of water. 1 second. Now, the resistance in me asking for that was because I was late to this interview, and I'm sorry. And also, we had already gotten started, but I realized, oh, we're going to talk for a while. If I don't have water here, I'm not going to be taking very good care of myself. And then I'm going to start clearing my throat, right? So I'm looking ahead in a mindful way of how can I take better care of myself right now, which is the most loving thing I can do, not just for me, but also for you and the people that are watching. And when we make those choices consistently, our life gets easier. Cheers. Those of you watching at home, now's a good time to take a sip of water. Brought to you by the rain of the universe.
I really love the part you're saying that if you constantly live in fear and you still try to be loving and forgiving, and then you basically overdrafting, you
Well
run
said.
out battery, right?
Mhm.
And even though there are people probably try to do that, then they might, I don't know, do you think they live in denial?
I think, no, I know because I lived it. At some point, they are forced to stop. They are forced to change. When I was a young girl, my mother died when I was young, and I had to take care of a lot of things in the family. And I'm the strong one, I got this. And I learned early on this programming of I have to take care of everyone else because the ship could go down at any moment because the captain's not here. So I'm the new captain. And I also developed a fear because my mother was hit by a car. She died very tragically and quickly, that I developed this fear that if I didn't hug someone goodbye or tell them I love them, I may never see them again. And that created anxiety in my relationships, that I needed to make sure people knew how much I loved them, to where it might have been even overbearing. Imagine how that could affect romantic partnerships and friendships. People are like, hey, leave me alone. Like, maybe I want to make my own choice about this. You don't have to mother me all the time. So when I was in my 20s, after living 20 years of taking care of everyone else, thinking everything else is so important, worrying all the time, I developed cancer. I got stage 3 cancer in my breast and in my lymph nodes, and I had to slow down. And I'm not saying everybody who has anxiety is going to get cancer, but I do believe that it's not a sustainable way to live. And when you live that way over and over and over, you're going to hit a wall. You're going to have to stop and slow down and heal. And if you don't choose to do it, something will choose to do it for you. And
Wow.
that's, yeah.
You know, I appreciate you share that with me. I know a little bit about that when we first know each other. And if you don't mind that I dig into your personal
Go
story
ahead.
a little
Yeah.
more, because I put you on a very vulnerable spot. Hopefully the people who are listening, I have clients who beat cancer. This is part you basically said, you're just, when people constantly in a bad mood, let's just say those depressed people, they tend to have other health issues. Let's just put that way. May not be
Mhm.
cancer, but they're just not healthy. When
Yeah.
you're mentally not healthy, you're physically gonna be affected from that. And then you said you basically forced to slow down because you got really sick. Then you also said you have to heal. So what pushed you to from slow down to heal? A lot of people may not even gonna make it. Like what's push you or motivate you keep going when you're knowing yourself's you?
Hmm. That's a great question. When when I was diagnosed with cancer, I was 24, and the first question from every doctor was, does this type of cancer run in your family? And the answer was no. I had one grandmother who had one lump that was a very different type of thing, and she was in her 70s, and so it was not a genetic thing. So then I learned that genetics actually play a small part in breast cancer, in a lot of illnesses. And there seems to be this push that if it runs in your family, you're going to get it, and people think they're cursed. And that's not true at all. It's very small percentages. So I went on a mission to find out, why did I get sick? With the determination that I knew I was going to beat this. So I knew I was going to heal. And even though I was stage 3, which means it spreads to more than one part of your body, okay, by the time you're stage 3, it's usually in two places or so. And stage 4, a lot of people hear stage 4 and they think, oh my God, it's a death sentence. It's not. It just means it spread to another place in your body, or it's a larger size. So it can all be solved if that's, again, I believe, your path to survive it. And that's what's meant to be for you. I knew immediately I was going to beat this. My doctor said, here's the plan. And then my naturopath said, here's the plan. And I did both, Eastern and Western. And I said, great, this is the formula. This plus this equals I get to live. I'm going to survive. Okay. Now you asked me about healing. There's a difference between surviving and healing, right? Surviving is, okay, I've gotten through it, but I could have survived it, Grace, and become a real bitter piece of shit. That when I was 24 and I was in the height of my career, I was acting full time, lost my hair, lost my boobs, my boyfriend and I broke up. That was a huge mess. I could have gotten really angry about that. But I went on a healing journey because I needed to know, why did I get sick? And in that healing journey, I learned that anger and fear are what manifests these illnesses. So if I'm going to heal, the last thing I need to do is get pissed off about this. I am not a victim. I know exactly why I got sick. And I hope that I'm living in a mindful way now and forever, that I will never get sick like that ever again. I'll be very surprised if I do, I'll tell you that.
What how many years you're cancer free?
Well, you're going to make me do math. I'm turning 40. At the time of us filming this, I'm turning 40, and I had cancer when I was 24. So I would say about 15 years, because they count it usually remission from the end of your chemo treatments or the end of your treatments. So about 15 years.
I really love what you just said, like everything your personal experience here. That, and I love the part you said, surviving that's not equal to healing. So at which point you realize that, or what drove you there? Like, okay, I need to heal. I want more than survive.
Well, I didn't want to get sick again. When you learn it's not genetics, and again, genetics are never 100% of the reason. Genetics are a predisposition. So if you know you have a genetic predisposition, then you have to be more careful about your food you eat and your environment and your stress. But understanding that the choices I made are what gave me cancer, I had to heal the behaviors that made those choices. And I had to look at the trauma and pain in my life and where I buried it. And I started seeing a coach, and I did an apprenticeship to learn how to listen more to my intuition. And I dove into living a life of joy and not living a life of judgment, living a purposeful life. And also, when when your mother dies young and you beat cancer, you want to live every day like it's your last. Okay. So I certainly went through a period where I got into a lot of debt because I said, fuck it. What if I die tomorrow? I'm going to buy this. I'm going to go here. I'm going to do this. Right. I did that. And then I took a step back and said, I don't need to live like that because I'm actually living. I'm actually really living. I'm not going to die tomorrow. So now I've gone on this healing journey. I want to live, it doesn't matter what I buy or where I go. I want to live every day with the most purpose and the greatest happiness. And sometimes that is sitting on my couch, looking out my window at the squirrels and the birds and playing with my dogs and my cats. I know I said dog. And so he looked at me. He knows that word. He knows lots of words. Yeah, baby. And just enjoying, like we choose. You're choosing to spend the afternoon of your birthday with me. What a
Wow.
gift.
So I love the part where you have so many good nuggets here for to whoever's listening here. Like Elysia is like sharing like crazy stuff here. And you mentioned that, you discovered that anger and fear make manifest illness, right? So,
Yeah.
and you're telling yourself, I don't want to get sick again, so I need to get out of this funk, right? Not to do those things.
I need to change my behavior. I need to change
Change your
what I
behavior,
believe,
change the belief.
change how I
Hence,
see things.
in dog training, we call change perceptions. It's called
I say,
perception modification.
great. I teach that too. I believe, the only real control we have over anything, Grace, is how we choose to see something for ourselves as humans.
Wow, this is very powerful. You have the control over how you choose to see something. Live life of joy, not judgment. Like, when you talk about like people say, when you say, hey, you don't want to live in judgment, what that mean? And what live in joy mean?
Yeah. So living in judgment is making choices from an idea of how you think others are going to see you, or what others are saying about you, or what family members expect of you. I know that rings true for you. And when we decide it's okay, they can think whatever they're going to think. I know I'm a good person and I'm going to follow my truth and I'm also going to help people. Whew, then the judgment doesn't matter. When you're really clear on who you are, what you're here to do, and the impact that you have, whether it's just on your own children or your pets or your community or the whole world, nobody can fuck with that. Judgment doesn't matter. And if they're going to judge you, then those are not your people. Those are not your friends. Those are not your clients. It doesn't matter. And if it's family, sometimes it's hard to say, well, my family is judging or my family members judging, or they don't understand what I'm doing. And, it's so funny for anyone who's listening, if you have your own business, 9 times out of 10, your brothers, sisters, cousins, they're not your clients. They don't want to pay to hire you. They want you to give it to them for free, or they think what you're doing is strange. Because oftentimes, I would say almost every time, when someone is judging someone else, what they're seeing and expressing is fear and jealousy that you're doing something that is so freeing and so out of the box. Like, what gives you the fucking right to live this free when I've committed to Wall Street or my full-time job with my pension? I've sacrificed to have this, to provide, right? They've got their story. They are pissed about that choice they made. And they're taking it out on you by judging you. That's not your fault. Your job is to love and forgive and repeat.
I really love this. I think I don't remember when long time ago I learned this because I grew up in China and you know a little bit about my backstories. So you know, I grew up in a very typical judgmental Asian
I
family.
know.
I think a lot of you here probably would have an idea. I'm now apparently being Chinese is the most hated thing ever,
Oh God,
right?
honey. Yeah, this last year.
So so that, you know, and I read this somewhere. They said that the people who are most judgmental or have specific thing that they constantly judging is usually reflect on the thing they're most fear of about themselves or not confident about themselves.
Correct. Yeah, I would say that's accurate, especially the
So
confidence piece.
yeah, I still remember this because you know in China it's very, very common like you judge people's look. It's very, very common. You're like, oh, that person too fat, or like, oh, that person have big butt, right? And then they said if you judge those body parts, usually means you're not comfortable with your own body parts. So, and I always find this fascinating. So all these years, I still remember this concept. It's like a personal projection, right? We talk about this even in dog training. That when we see our dogs suffering or they feel sad or however we interpret it, does not really mean that's how the dog think. It's how we project our thoughts and we create these stories onto our dog. Like I have dog fearful, then they automatically assume the dog had been abused before.
Hmm.
Where actually over 90% of the rescue dogs have never been abused ever.
My goodness.
So, but once you start putting that story, you start feeling bad for the dog.
Sure.
And
Making up a story.
yeah, and then you mentioned this. You said you don't want to be a victim, right? And then in dog training, basically they treat the dog as a victim, and then they do not allow the dog to see them differently. So the dog also feel they're a victim, so they can't
Hmm.
really break through their own fear and stuff like that.
Yeah, that's
So
powerful.
so what's the opposite of victim?
Empowerment. Knowing who you are. Living in a powerful, joyful, purpose driven, confident way. You know, when you said, okay, I'm going to judge how big their butt is, right? So then you said, well, maybe I'm thinking I don't like my butt. But there's another part of it. What if, and I'll share an embarrassing story. Okay. One time I saw somebody walking down the street who was very, very, very heavy, very obese. And I don't have a problem with that. And she was wearing this really tight, like bright pink, like tie dye thing that was like tied at her right under her chest, and her stomach is hanging out. And, you know, all sorts of things were going on. And I remember looking at her, and my first thought was like, what the fuck? Right? Like, huh. And then in the moment, I caught myself judging. I was like, I'm not upset that she's showing her stomach. I don't have the confidence to wear that outfit. And even now, I'm trying to practice wearing, like, showing my legs and my cellulite, and like, I don't know if I'll ever get rid of it, right? And it's like, am I never going to wear shorts again, or am I just going to embrace my cellulite? So I'm going through that personal journey right now. And anytime I have ever judged somebody, if I thought they looked fat, for example, like you said, that is not, like, fat is not a bad thing. It's just a thing. And I was jealous. They're freaking rocking that, owning that jumpsuit that I do not feel comfortable wearing. So sometimes it's not even, oh, there's something wrong with, with the way I look. It's no, it's something wrong with in my mind. Like, not even wrong, right? I want to be more kind and more compassionate towards myself. That there's something that I don't appreciate about myself. I think that I'm lacking in some way, or that I'm not as beautiful. That girl could give two shits what I think. And I want that freedom. I want to see the world the way she sees the world. And I promise I'll be just as kind.
You know, I love this part. One of my dog training mentor have shared with me that when you feel being offended in any way, it's never about the other person.
Hmm.
It's always about yourself when you feel offended because you have insecurities that think you being triggered by whatever thing they're saying. It-
Yeah.
and what you just shared kind of remind me of that. People, those are people full of anger, right? They constantly get triggered and offended and
Offended.
angry,
Yeah.
right? And obviously they're gonna go in this bad cycle that is stuck and spinning inside of that and constantly feel more hatreds. I think that's really what's going on right now, right? The hatreds towards certain race or color of people or whatever that
Everybody's
might be.
offended by everything. And I think it's taking away from people feeling free to be who they are because they think they're going to offend somebody if they wear, a dream catcher on their shirt or a head rag or all the things that didn't matter what we did before because it was appreciating culture. And I understand the movement that's happening, but to go to a place of severe anger about it, we need to get through this time and for people to set boundaries and give space on those choices and learn, especially the conversations around privilege that we've all been having. And whew, like you said, honey, everybody is just so angry on all sides, angry for people, outside of their own race. And I think it's important, to empathize and to see the struggle, uh, but to feel that rage every day, it's not healthy.
You want to live every day as your last, so you're spending money and thinking you're gonna die tomorrow, so you don't need to pay bills. Okay, so
I did that. I did that.
so so I think that's kind of now we're laughing, but I'm sure at the
Yeah.
time that wasn't as funny.
I had a
Um,
good time doing it.
so so for the people now, this is a common phrase, oh, live every day as your last. So nowadays you look at that phrase, like how you see it, do you see it differently or you feel to say it differently?
I still feel that way, but my actions are not related to my finances. My actions are related to my relationships and my generosity and just taking action to do things that make me happy.
The toughest moment or darkest moment when you go through this process back in the time?
Hmm. Okay. The first thing that came to mind when I was really sick, all of my friends stopped talking about their lives. They thought, Alicia's fighting cancer. I really shouldn't be complaining about the date that I went on last night or that I haven't gotten a raise or, our first world problems, right? They stop talking about their lives. And when you are going through trauma, the last thing that you want is to feel alone. And my friends, I have the most amazing friends. They showed up, they brought me stuff, they put on movies, and I would say, "What's going on with you?" And they'd be like, "Oh, everything's fine." I'm like, "When has everything been fine? You hate this guy you've been dating, your job, da 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 da. What? All of a sudden, all your problems are fixed, right?" And they would say, "Well, no, it's like I don't have cancer. Like it kind of puts it in perspective. My problems aren't a big deal anymore." I'm like, "Okay, then we don't have to talk about your problems, but please let's talk. I need to think about something else other than my fucking doctor's appointments." So it wasn't a long period of time because I just had to have a handful of those conversations, but that was that was the hardest part. And they all did it from a place of love. And then I would say the second wave of all of that was overcoming the financial stuff, you know, not working a lot when I had cancer and, going into some debt that way. And then, of course, again, well, I'm going to rack up every credit card because screw it, who knows what's going to happen. And then figuring out how to come out of that, going through debt consolidation programs and understanding the value of my time. Again, I believe it all happened perfectly. It all happened for a reason. I not only survived it, I am now thriving from it. I'm doing well. I'm doing great. And I learned so much from that time about what's important to me. And also, I learned to appreciate the value of a dollar. I really did. And doesn't mean I still don't spend a bunch of money on ridiculous things. And I'm very generous, but there were a lot of sleepless nights worrying about money. And I would say, Grace, out of everything, that was kind of the last piece of the puzzle. We're all learning. I don't have my puzzle's not finished. I shouldn't say that. But as far as my last like real darkest time, I would say it was right before we met. It was kind of around that. You saw me talk a few times during that about just things I was holding on to that I didn't want to let go of, and some of it was connected to that. So in the end, the lesson is just learn to. It's almost like a letting go or a release. I like to say surrender. I just need to surrender to this story and these habits and these fears. And once you surrender and you go, okay, I have surrendered, all you can do is sit where you are and be where you are. And that takes you back to a mindful place. All you have is your breath and the people that love you and your animals. And if that means I need to live under a bridge with my dog and my husband, we're going to have an awesome time. But that wasn't my story. So I'm happy for that too.
Her toughest time had nothing to do with beating cancer.
No.
Right?
Yeah, I knew I was going to beat it.
Yeah, it's not about, okay, I'm my toughest time is losing my beautiful hair, right? That's not her toughest time. Her toughest time is she doesn't want to be treated differently because she had cancer. She doesn't, you said you don't want to feel alone because people just feel bad for you, and then they just don't want to, they feel bad to share their awesome life or complain about their life.
Yeah.
And then the other thing is, okay, everybody worry about money. And obviously she go on a tomorrow don't need to pay bill thing. So she's been spending. And so from all of that experience, and how that experience help you to be who you are today and starting your business?
It's all connected. And, I said before, I have a background in acting and being on camera. And then after I went through cancer treatments, I was doing less on camera because my hair was growing back and my chest was being, had surgery and being reconstructed. So I got into video production. So I learned video production. And again, I had to surrender over and over. Okay, I love acting, but I'm going to do less of it now because this is paying the bills and I have to catch up financially, right? So it's a domino effect of as I rebuild my life, it's okay to let go. It's okay to get on the train that is showing up for me. Can you hear my dogs? And then, of course, being a coach, one part we haven't talked about yet, it sounds like I've lived 1,000 lives, and I have, but when I was acting full time, I was bartending to pay the bills. And then my sister started a wedding business. And she said, why don't you get out of the bar and come do weddings? You could make just as much money. You don't have to work late. And I was working at the ArcLight at the time, and I loved my job, and I met celebrities all the time. And it was just really one of the best places in the world to work. But she was right. I was kind of tired of bartending, and I started officiating marriages. And as I started officiating marriages, people would say to me, the parents of the couple, oh, I got married 20 years ago. I don't remember anything. I heard that over and over. People who are getting married a second time, I don't remember my first wedding. Like, what? You don't remember your wedding? What is going on here? So very early on, before I walked down the aisle with my couple, we did a grounding meditation. My mother raised me Zen Buddhist, and the rest of my family is Jewish. So we have a very, strong spirituality. So I learned to meditate very early on. And I studied meditation as an adult, especially as I was going through my healing journey. So I taught all my couples, before you walk down the aisle, drop into your body. We did a handful of exercises, took 5 minutes. 100% of the time, everybody loved it. And they would always say to me, thank you for doing that. I was in the moment, because when you're about to walk down the aisle, for those of you who are married, you remember it's an anxious, crazy experience. A lot of pressure, a lot going on.
I was very sick on my wedding day.
Oh, of course you were, because they're so, okay, baby. Barnaby Jones, everybody, Barnaby Jones. Okay. I know you want to go so bad. You're getting in my interview. Okay. Boundaries, right, Grace? Boundaries. So once I started, hear that? Once I started teaching people, drop in, show up for your wedding. And I did hundreds and hundreds of weddings, over 1,000 weddings. I was like, oh my gosh, between what I learned as an actor, what I went through beating cancer, how I learned how to now see the world differently, my spiritual studies, being a minister, non-denominational, and learning this mindful experience and knowing how to do camera work, I think I need to build a video course as a life coach with myself on camera, teaching people how to be grounded. It kind of all fell into place from everything I have ever done. It has led me right here to this moment on your birthday.
Wow. Is that's remind me the phrase I learned from the program we joined together back in the time is that everything's happened for you, not happened to you.
Yep.
That's really a saying I still like. I just remembered it every time something happens. Or like, okay, it happened for a reason and to make us stronger.
Yes.
And
It's one of my favorites. What does that mean for you, Grace? It's not happening to you, it's happening for you. How do you apply that in your life?
you know, you're the third guest I think try to interview me on my interview.
I'm not trying anything. You're so wise and you're so eloquent with how how you do these. So,
One thing I'll share with you, not directly related to me, but it's how I got into the business. And with my clients, I always tell them there's this saying, a difficult dog make great owners. So it's kind of a similar concept. Obviously, there will be owners not going to make it. We don't count those ones, obviously. But the ones that they do experience difficult dog, they really do everything they could to help the dog, that really make their skills when come to understanding their own dogs and how successful they are with helping their dogs. It's just a dog owner maybe have an easier dog that they probably would never achieve that level of complex understanding to help their dogs.
Mm.
And myself, obviously, that I got in this business because I had a difficult dog, and I'd never overthink it. This is part I think maybe very similar. I can't compare my story to your cancer story per se, but before I got the dog, I already picked a trainer. I already picked what program I'm gonna do, and I told my husband, I just need a dog now. I'm ready.
Hmm.
I've never thought in my life like, okay, this dog gonna be so difficult that I might not be able to make it with my dog. I don't
Sure.
think that's ever happened. I was like, okay, I don't care what dog I'm getting, I will make it work. And I
Mm.
think that's how I kind of go into this. And then obviously over the year, I saw other dog owners struggle, but so that's kind of part I got in the business because I felt there's like the gap. You heard my speech back in the time. That's
Hmm.
there's a gap between what I call a conventional dog trainer that just tell you just do this, you fix the dog, versus okay, if you're a dog owner with a very challenged dog, the most support, this whole dynamic really needed the support to the owner. It's rarely about the dog
Yeah.
because the owner having really hard time to see their dogs be in that stage, like really fearful, really reactive, or go on biting people. And when owners see that, their thought is not like, oh, just tell me what to do, I'll do that. It's rarely happen like that. It's always happen like, well, my dog like this, I feel very frustrated, I'm scared because I worry my dog gonna run off and got hit by a car, or I'm worried my dog gonna bit somebody. And the solution, part of solution obviously is managing the dog, but the biggest part of solution is how we can help the owners to understand, okay, there's things they can do or it's possible to do. And then the tricky part is, I think it's also like, well, give them hope to know, okay, there's the improvement can be done. They're
Hmm.
also the tricky part to understand. We don't know how far their dog can go.
Hmm. Yeah. Hope
You
and
know,
possibility.
And because I've seen, this is part, we both business owners, this is the interesting part. Like a lot of business owners or big corporations, they will do anything for marketing to make the sale. They will say stuff that people want to hear. And then they'll just ditch you afterwards. Now, I think in your line of work and my line of work, I really I tell my clients the truth. I can't give you a guarantee that your dog will never bite people again. There's no way for us to control that. Right? That's the reality of it. But can we help your dog to reduce that chances, and how to handle your dog when that do happen? Those are the things we can potentially work on.
Yeah.
And I think for people to understand that, sometimes it's very challenging for them. They part of it, I think maybe that's the question that I want to throw back at you, because you're working with human emotions.
Yeah. What's the guarantee?
So the part of, people knowing, everybody will say, yeah, I know you can't guarantee my dog, it's out of your control. But at the same time, they're not happy with that answer. So in your line of work, have you worked with anybody with such they're conflicted, right? They know the fact, but then they don't want to believe.
I recently put out a new video, and it is on a page where you order my book, and then you book an appointment with me for a free session to get to know each other. And in the video, I state very clearly who my client is not. And I did that because as a coach, and I'm sure you can relate, it is exhausting working with people who, number one, are not ready, they're not willing, and they think that it's everyone else's fault. And that's why I think I quoted earlier, I said, I'm not a victim. And there's a quote in A Course in Miracles, which is a spiritual philosophy on forgiveness, that says, I am not a victim of the world I see. I'm not. So if someone thinks I am this way because of this, and not because of the continued choices they make to facilitate that belief, then they're not ready for me. That goes into trauma therapy, psychotherapy, people who specialize in that. And I want them to come to me. Look, I want to help everybody. I really do. But I know that they're going to get very angry with me if you say to somebody who has been through horrific trauma, worse than any of us have, right? That you're not a victim of this circumstance, because there's a lot of trauma groups that refer to the group members as victims of these situations. And on a very black and white level, yes, they are, and they were victimized, and they were taken advantage of and abused, and it's fucking horrible. But what I want to add to what I said before is, if you're a year out, 10 years out, and you're still making bad choices because you think that you're being punished, and this thing happened, this happened to me, and it's like, okay, it's like, I love you. That's your story. That's what happened. Who are you now? Where is the path in between? Where is the love and forgiveness? There's a lot of pain. Let's work on healing it and working through it. And, when we've gone through trauma, people say, oh, time heals all wounds, right? I don't know if that's true. Because when we go through horrific shit, there's flare-ups. You said earlier, triggers, right? Things come up, anniversaries of those events, whatever it is, we flare up. So time isn't going to perfectly heal it, but what time will do is give you an opportunity to work on healing yourself through this work that you and I do, and so many other beautiful people do. And when you're really ready, your life is going to be easier. And sometimes people are just not ready, and they just want to be sad a little bit longer. And I can hold space for that for a little while, you know. But, to give a basic example, we had a friend in our friend group, kind of an acquaintance years ago, who had a sex addiction. And she would try to sleep with everybody's boyfriend or girlfriend. She didn't care. Right. And, she opened up to me about some things that had happened to her in her past. And of course, it gave me empathy, like, oh, she's this way because this happened to her. And we were in our 20s. And I said to my boyfriend at the time, well, she tried to have sex with that guy because that's what she learned, gives her validation. And, da, da, da. And he goes, yeah, that stuff happened to her a long time ago. What work has she done to heal it and to try and correct those behaviors in the moment so she's not destroying her lives and other people's lives? Like, there's people that are going to hear what I'm saying that don't like this, Grace. Right? So that's a really deep answer to your question because, yeah, I can't help everybody. They really have to be ready. And that's the first question I ask my clients. Why now? And they don't have to have it fixed. They don't have to have it all together. Again, I'll hold space for that healing. But and someone could come to me fresh out of trauma, very broken. But if they think this is, this is all someone else's fault and they're cursed, there's only a certain amount of time we can work through that before they really need something deeper.
Yeah. Well, in dog training world, I always tell people you want to start early. And the recent years, well, in the past couple of years, I've been getting lucky. I have clients who just recently adopt a dog. They start training earlier on because they like, okay, I want to set it up right so we don't have dealing with problems. When I first started this journey, most of my clients have the dog for a year and a half, 2 years after they tried semi-committed to tried several things, right? And it's not working. And all they believe, just like what you said, the time healing stuff, they believe time, patience, and love will fix the dog.
Mm-hmm.
And after a couple of years, they realize, okay, it's not happening, right? Those things, the dog getting worse, but they give you enough patience, they give you enough love, right? And then there's time passing by, and then their dog just getting worse. That's when they start seeking more like serious training. They're like, okay,
Right.
well, I really need to fix my dog now.
Because the dog's like, oh, it's been 2 years and I'm still getting away with this shit. So why should I change?
So it's very interesting that you said this. I think everybody listening probably have a acquaintance or friend that they know that they had some trauma back in the time, and they still use that as an excuse of their behavior of today.
Mm-hmm. Right. That's exactly what
And
I'm saying.
your line of work, do you have, the people you've helped, like given obviously confidentiality and stuff, the thing you allowed to share? Can you share with us maybe a story that a client you have helped and what they're able to achieve?
I mean, there's all different levels of that. I think we've covered a broad scope today. Going back to the foundation of this work of really listening to intuition, this week somebody called me in tears and they said, I have to put down my cat. And I said, wow, that's really, really sad. And let's talk through it. And as she's talking and talking, she says, it's my cat's birthday on Thursday, but I'm supposed to put her down on Tuesday. And on Tuesday, I was going to go see this radiologist that could maybe help. But I saw this other one today who said there's no help. The tumor's too big. No amount of money is going to save her. So, but I kind of like the idea of it being her birthday. And I said, okay. And then she said, but if she's already suffering every day, I don't want to make 2 more days of suffering. That's so sad. I don't want to do that just for me. Right. So I said, okay, pause here. When we're, again, this is trauma, thinking we have to put down our animal. Whew. Drop in, breathe, get present, come from a place of love. Right. So I said, what day? Tuesday or Thursday? Make the decision from a calm place, from a loving place, not from an anxious place. Really listen. Okay. Now, I'm very intuitive. So I heard Thursday. So I let her talk first. And she said, I just, I really just don't want her to suffer. She couldn't get out of it. She couldn't get out of it. So I said, okay, I hear Thursday. This is not my animal. I feel very calm. I hear Thursday. I do think she's feeling ready to go. She's old. She's 20. But if there is a chance to prolong her life with CBD or some very minimal treatment, and you don't have to put her down, and she's purring, eating, walking, running, playing, not in pain, you don't have to give her pain meds all the time. It's worth going to the appointment on Tuesday. Get a second opinion. Okay. For humans, if someone says you have cancer and someone says go have this surgery, yeah, I'm going to go see a second surgeon. I'm not just going to go with the first. The first guy told me to get double D's and now's a chance to go bigger. You're going to get new boobs? Go bigger. I was like, what? I went to the second opinion who said, let's keep you your natural state. So today, the time of this recording, today, Grace's birthday, she called me and she said, I decided to do it Thursday. I went to the radiologist. He says there's a 75% remission rate. He could save my cat. She'll live at least another year, maybe more. Woo! Right? So had she frantically made a decision from a place of fear and anxiousness, that cat would not be alive right now. That cat gets a second chance. Now she's 20. So then we manage expectations and get present. Honey, she's 20. She could fall asleep and not wake up from being old. So understand that could still happen, right? She understands. So I consider that a huge success because we saved a life. I had a client who was moving from the East Coast to the West Coast, very, very Italian mother. If anyone who's Italian, it's like, you don't move out unless you're getting married. Otherwise, you live in the house, or the mother moves in with the couple and they all live together till they die. And every mother lives with the kid till they die. And you probably die in the house you were born in, and so do the next 5 generations. It's very old world for so many of these families. And I love part of it, but she was feeling fear. She wanted to move to the West Coast. She had fear around leaving her mom. She's moving in with her boyfriend, who she was not married to or engaged to. All these judgments that were coming up. She had a corporate job. She had to quit her job and go somewhere where she didn't have a job. She was going to rely on her boyfriend financially. She's a very strong, fierce, independent woman. Now she has to rely on a man to take care of her, right? Every fear you could ever imagine flared up. So long story short, we work together every 2 weeks. They're getting married this summer. She has an amazing, very well-paid job on the West Coast. Her mother accepted it. They're better now than they were before. And we even had conversations, big wedding, small wedding. And she ultimately is having the wedding she wants, not the wedding everyone else wants. So in the end, it all worked out. But it was a process of not being a victim, trusting, knowing that if you're making a choice that it's good for you and your boyfriend, even if it hurts your mother is choosing to see it that way and choosing to feel that way, and she'll be okay. And we could still love her and forgive her and be a leading example of what love and forgiveness is, in case she wants to meet you there, and create your life. If you're truly meant to be with this person and live on the West Coast, the right job is going to show itself for you.
Share with my audience, like if they want to get to know more about your work or even want to work with you, what's the best way for them to get in touch with you?
Oh, thank you. Well, my coaching program is called the Brilliance Method, and the website is thebrilliancemethod.com. So we'll put that in the video. And I have different offers all the time. So through that, just reach out. The email address is ask@thebrilliancemethod.com. Hopefully, if you're watching this in 10 years, that's the same email. I'm not hard to find. My social medias are all at Elysia Skye. So if you can't get me on email, direct message me. But I love working with individuals, groups, and corporations. I do a lot of mindfulness training for big companies because it's very important, that trickle down effect. When the CEOs and the managers and HR people are doing it, it has a really powerful impact on people. So
Wow. Awesome. Awesome. I'm so grateful you're here today. We finally made it.
thank you. I'm grateful too. Thank you for your patience and your love and your understanding and sharing your birthday with me.